Master of Ceremonies, Master of Coin and Commerce, Master of Logistics, Master of Emissaries, Master of Whispers and Spies. Hello, travelers, and welcome to LoreSpire. Today we have the first video in a series covering the companions for Owlcat's upcoming Warhammer 40k Rogue Traders CRPG. In this video, we'll cover the Seneschal companion Abelard Werserien. First, we'll look at what a Seneschal is and the duties they have as described in the Rogue Trader tabletop core rulebook. Then we'll cover what we know about Abelard specifically. So, what does a Seneschal do? Well, they mostly run the Rogue Trader's empire, making sure that the hundreds, thousands, or even millions of small, everyday tasks that have to be done are taken care of. This includes the most boring, bureaucratic BS you could imagine, like organizing ceremonies, reading a never-ending supply of reports, endlessly delegating and dictating tasks and orders to underlings, overseeing trade negotiations, and well, I could go on, but you get the picture. I guess this sounds like the worst career path imaginable, especially in a futuristic sci-fi fantasy game, but hey, somebody's gotta do it, right? And of course, there is a side to the Seneschal's duties that are a good bit more exciting. After all, they do have the title of Master of Whispers and Spies, and that is where the Seneschal's duties become far more interesting. Seneschals tend to keep vast networks of tightly controlled spies and contacts in as many places as possible to ensure they always have the most relevant information possible. Most of this is mundane information, such as the price of certain goods on the black market or the amount of wealth possessed by local nobility, information that has little use beyond securing better terms in a trade agreement, navigating politics, or helping with the aforementioned mundane tasks. However, a good Seneschal will also have well-placed spies that provide information of a more interesting and secretive nature. And at times, they themselves may be that well-placed spy. The kind of information we're talking about is about as wide and varied as you can imagine, but just for example, it could be something like, who might have hired the assassin who recently offed a local governor, or who is controlling the pirates that are continuously raiding a planet's supply line, or who is secretly working with Xenos to further their own ambitions. This is the kind of information that can be used in political maneuverings to gain allies, weaken enemies, blackmail officials, or to gain some advantage in any number of other ways. All of this makes a good Seneschal absolutely essential to any successful rogue trader. As with the Seneschal playing their part, the Rogue Trader is free to take a macro view and focus on executing whatever grand designs they are planning. Now, to wrap up this section of the video, I'm going to read a passage from the core rulebook that I feel gives a lot of flavor to the more interesting aspects of the Seneschal. Most Seneschals favor a hands-on approach in their work, never fully trusting knowledge they cannot confirm themselves. As a result, many are masters of disguise and duplicity, able to blend into the background in almost any situation. Donning the guise of the Grey Man, and yes, I'm making air quotes there, the Seneschal lurks in the periphery as the great and the good conduct their affairs, observing all that transpires whilst remaining unnoticed. With a cold-blooded sureness, they seek to discern the truth behind rousing speeches and courteous manners, and lies cloaked in both piety and vice. Sage counselor, prophet monger, and spy, the Seneschal is all these things and more. Now, I have a moniker of my own to add here that I feel describes the Seneschal quite well, and that is badass bureaucrat. I really think that's what they are. Anyways, I think now that we all have a pretty good general idea of what a Seneschal is and what they do, we can move on to Abelard Werserien. Unfortunately, we do not have a ton of information on Abelard Werserien as of yet, but here is what we do know. Abelard once was the first officer on a cruiser void ship in the Navis Imperialis, or Imperial Navy. He met Theodora von Valancius during a joint operation between Theodora's rogue trader forces and the Imperial Navy. Quick side note here for those who are not aware, Theodora is the predecessor of the rogue trader empire that the player character inherits in this game. We'll probably have a video covering her at some point, but most likely not until after Alpha releases, because that should give us a good bit more info on her. Back to Abelard. In the joint operation, Theodora was impressed by Abelard and she claimed him as her Seneschal. Now, I don't understand exactly how this would work. The Navis Imperialis doesn't really seem like it would be too keen on letting competent officers leave its service, but perhaps Theodora had the contacts to secure his release, or perhaps they simply waited for his contract of service to expire. If that kind of thing exists in Warhammer, I'm not too sure on that. Anyways, again, we should find out more information about this once Alpha starts, and we'll probably have an updated video then. Abelard has now spent decades as the right hand of Theodora, and helped her to build and advance the Von Valancius Empire to the state it is in when the player character takes control of it. Abelard is a hard man, but he is fiercely loyal to the trade empire that he helped create. Presumably, with the player now being the new leader of that empire, we too can count on his loyalty. And Abelard views anything that threatens the Von Valancius Empire as he would a personal threat to himself. Okay, so after considering all of this, it's likely that Abelard will feel a strong loyalty towards the player character. I think that that's almost a given. After all, we are the leader of the empire he has committed so much of his life to. However, I could see Abelard being a prime candidate as a companion that abandons us under certain conditions or betrays us. For instance, if there is a story path that leads the Von Valancius Empire to ruin, or perhaps even if certain choices simply take the empire in a direction with which Abelard strongly disagrees, I could definitely see him turning on us in that type of situation, possibly. Now, if Owlcat does include something like this, I hope that it occurs in a more eventful fashion than in Wrath of the Righteous. Something like an attempted assassination seems like it would fit well if Abelard does turn against the player. And then if you survive the assassination, you can investigate and eventually discover Abelard's treachery. I think that including something like this would be awesome, absolutely awesome. And I hope to see it included, or at least something like this included for all or most of the story paths. With the characters that abandon you or turn on you, and the manner in which they do so, being dependent upon the choices you make along the way, of course. So let me know what you think about that down in the comments, and be sure to include any cool ideas that you yourself may have about that. Alright, so that covers pretty much everything that we know about the Seneschal and Abelard Werserien at this point in time, which if you're watching this at a later date, we're still in pre-alpha right now. And as I said, this is going to be a series of videos, and the next video will cover Psykers in general and Idra Talas as a companion specifically. Okay, so hopefully I'll see you all there. This has been Chris with LoreSpire. Be well, my friends.